Hello everyone, this is Extra1201 here for Chapter 13, and I hate this map. I will go more into why I hate this map, but just know for now that this is incredibly RNG heavy and I hate it. So basically, this map is dependent on Kagero essentially soloing the northern section of the map. She's able to run KO the general thanks to the Sing Shuriken, but she essentially has to dodge tank hardcore and also run KO the enemies. This mill section is also just incredibly RNG dependent. I also have Orochi visit the village. Rinka visits the village. Last map we got Caden, and Caden's actually a surprisingly decent unit. He's actually able to run KO a fair amount of enemies here. He can also run KO a fair amount of enemies in 15. He's also able to 2-round KO the paladins in 14, which is very nice considering how bulky they are. So the general gist of this first turn is to basically get a bunch of units in range, just to kind of bait a bunch of enemies, so that way Kagero does not die. I need to dodge that Wyverlord hit, otherwise Saizo would die, and Kagero would also die. I also want to weaken the Wyverlord and weaken the fighters, so that way I can have Orochi capture them. If Kagero doesn't dodge enough hits, she will die. If sometimes the Wyvern Riders will attack someone else, sometimes they'll keep hitting Kagero. Sometimes the unit positioning will basically force me to go with an entirely different strategy. It is very RNG dependent. This doesn't really get covered a lot, but a lot of map clears are dependent on AI manipulation, which is just having the AI react the way you want them to, and in chapter 13 is completely sporadic. Like, for example, later in the map, there's a general pair up on the right side, and if it goes downward, I am basically boned. So I have to reset the map. And honestly, my strategy on the top section depends on how much damage Kagero takes. And sometimes Camilla will go for Kagero. Sometimes she'll go for Reina. Sometimes she'll go for Takumi. It is very RNG heavy. This is by far the chapter I've had to spend the most time on. And considering I've had to spend about half an hour just resetting chapter 7 to rig Hexing Rod hit, I think that says a lot. I have Caden paired up with Rinka, just get the villages on the bottom. He can warm and KO the fighters on enemy phase. Silas just helps clean up. Weakening the Wyvern Lord is honestly kind of tricky. I basically bought a brass Yumi so that way I can weaken the Wyvern Lord enough to not die, but also have Orochi capture him, and Orochi finally gets to level 10. Reina is pretty helpful. She's able to get some villages and also be able to be in range of some enemies to basically 1-round KO them, which is very nice. Dealing with Selena is also very RNG dependent, because if you don't 1-round KO her in time, she'll basically just go to the left and heal, which basically wastes more time. If she hits you, you also have a much more tricky predicament. On the top half is very dependent. This entire chapter is extremely dependent on just how the enemies react, and it is very dodge heavy. And frankly, it's very annoying. I had the Sting Shuriken here because I can bait the general on enemy phase, which is very nice. Caden does a really good job of just baiting the enemies. Because of the sporadic nature of the map, I've basically had to redo it multiple times. So if you see pauses, that's just me adjusting my strategies, essentially. And also, thank you, Takumi, for that very thank you, Takumi, for that very reliable hit. Yes, perfectly reliable. So thank you very much. So Reina is able to come up here and basically kind of have the enemies funnel to her. The map is essentially having Kagero solo the entire top section, because Kagero is just an insanely good unit for this map and just really good filler, and the rest is just kind of finagling with my units to just handle the bottom portion. Fortunately, Silas, I don't know why I pause here. Uh, Silas is fortunately just very solid as a combat unit. Takumi is really solid when it comes to chip. Reina is just really solid when it comes to this map. Caden is also really solid when it comes to getting the villages. I don't need to get all the villages, but some items, such as the Heart Seal and the Spare Dust, are rather nice. I don't even give any use stab boosters until like chapter 21, and that's literally just an arm scroll. Yeah, here I bait the archer. Oh yeah, also, sometimes the Wyvern Lord will go on the right, will go onto the bottom instead of the middle, and that also messes with my strategy. And there's also a bunch of outlaws, and the outlaws will not attack any units until if there's a villager raid. So even if you have, say, a unit who can Oko them and they can attack them, they will go for the village instead, which will also waste a turn. And just this entire line of enemies is just incredibly tricky. I need to be able to one-run KO the Wyverlord, which is incredibly hard, and then I also need to one-run KO Baruka, but I also need to dodge tank. And I also need to deal with Hands, who is very just has enormous HP. And then I also need to be able to one round KO the outlaw, have a unit visit the village so the outlaws don't ignore me, and also be able to Oko them. So thank God for dual gauge. Hands Silas is able to take a hit from Hans, or I should say Fums. Thank you, guest. Reina just clutches in with the brass Yumi. I find it funny how I just kill him with a brass weapon. This is gonna be very memey. And I didn't even really check, but I just kind of assumed that Reina just kind of lives a hit, and it's like, oh, I dual gauge the next hit anyway, and it's actually worked out. This map is not one of my favorites, but this clear, considering it's only a turn slower than Cheeky's clear, is a really good clear in my opinion. Props to Kagero for literally soloing the top part of the map and basically killing 2 pre-promotes. Also, kudos to Reina, Silas, and Scarlet, and that is chapter 13 in, I don't know, I don't care.